Hi, this is Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, here to fix you and help you grow your property and your business affairs to the next level. So if you're looking for knowledge and insights about how to get involved in property, solve your problems about scalability in your property business, then do watch our 20-minute clips. We've taken them from hundreds and, well, thousands of videos that we've taken over the last 6 months, and we've broken them into simple chunks which can make them useful for you. So do watch and do subscribe to our YouTube channel underneath as well.
You're going to have a fantastic day. All the things that you're thinking of that you wanted to achieve, they're going to start happening. So it's going to be a very, very fantastical day for you, beyond your wildest dreams. How's that for a affirmation for you guys? We've also had a comment from Dee, believe she's written, "Thank you, Deborah, Sophia, Magdalene, and Lakhi. I'm very grateful for the shout out and the loving support." So I think what we're going to do, Dee, is for you to just, because no point in really having the Alternative Business Solutions community if we can't deliver anything for you. We're going to get you on the show, and we're going to try and talk a lot more about what you're doing, and try to get an understanding of the life story of Dee as well. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make it a mission to try and find something for you now, because you've come on the show now, but we're going to give you resources to do it. So Lakhi will hopefully be able to fix it for you. Be somewhat like a challenge for us, but I'm sure there'll be about 10 or 20 different strategies to actually help you find that perfect piece of land. So we discussed this last night. So how do you find a piece of land? Number one, I think she's doing a lot of good things. So number one is talking to agents. Number two, the other thing that Dee's been doing is she's put an advert out in the local press. She's also been going out and in particular areas talking to farmers and getting opinion. But so far, she's not come up with anything. So I think the perfect storm would be if you meet somebody who's had some issues in the past and realizes the potential of what she's doing, and yet they've got ample land and they want to give something back. Because I think having such a good vibe on your piece of land, and if it's disused or not being optimized, you can get something like that done. I think that's actually mind-blowing. So I'm actually sending out a lot of positive vibes for D20man today. What a fantastic name as well, D20man. Okay, so D, we're sending you lots of love, energy, and support in your endeavors, and we're going to do all in our powers to get you out there. Social media, Adnan Pasha, Lakhi Singh, property fixer, will be also introducing you to 3 or 4 people. So I'm going to introduce you to these 4 people. One's called Jack Dowra. He's the head of quite a large investment company that works across the whole country. I'm going to introduce you to Ash Alahi, Adnan Pasha, and also Harry Williams, who's often on the show as well. So between those 4 people, you should have some luck. And if you still don't have any luck, I know a lot of local property groups on Facebook. We can also help you to get onto those or put things out on there. But I'm pretty confident that you'll find something anyway. I've got a good feeling about it. Got a good feeling. Okay, anyway, I think my singing is fantastic, but not many people think I can sing that well, actually. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to spend about 5 minutes now giving you a brief about LPA receivers. What are they? How do they work? So Landlord Property Act 1925 is the act which is used by banks to stop, to actually take control of properties in the Buytolet sector. Now, what's going to happen is that as the market's tightening, there are a lot of organizations and banks which are pulling out of the market. So almost 50% of bridges or commercial lenders have actually pulled out of the market because they concerned about valuations. So as an organization, we are getting a lot of people coming to us and saying, okay, well, the bank's pulled out, what do I do? So they're looking for like temporary finance in between to sort things out, or to sell the properties, or to get cash flow or liquidity while they're trying to sort out their problems. So we get a lot of that particular issue happening at the moment. So there's a lot of distress around properties for landlords and buy-to-let owners, and quite a lot in the commercial sector because of the issues around COVID-19 and them not being able to pay the rent to the landlord. So there's a lot of complicated things that are happening at the moment that we all may need actually knowledge and information on. So how does the LPA Receivership Act get applied? So let's just say you got 10 buy-to-lets, you're living, everything's going well. All of a sudden, let's just say 3 or 4 of the tenants stop paying you. You may actually be, may not have your job anymore, or the furlough scheme stopped and you're not really getting the money that you need to sustain your portfolio because you're doing some works, and you'll get in a tight cash spot. So all of a sudden you miss payments on, let's just say, 3 of your properties. Now, if it's the same bank, you've got to be quite careful if you've got, because they normally have a all monies charge across all your properties. So they could technically try and take control of all the properties, collect the rent, and have the power of sale to sell those properties as well, which is kind of scary. So you just have to be really careful if you've got a buy-to-let portfolio in this market, that you don't leave yourself open to the bank's hands in terms of the power of sale. Now, what happens with a lot of banks is the receivers say, "Oh, don't worry, you won't sell it. We'll just, we'll just collect the rent." But what a lot of buy-to-let landlords don't realize is that the bank or the LPA receivers can actually sell the property any time, and they don't necessarily have to tell you. If they want to sell it, they can. So you just have to be very careful that you don't end up becoming a cropper and letting your properties actually get eaten up by receivers. So what are the actions you can take to stop the receivers coming in? Number one is obviously don't get into arrears and keep your payments up to date. What happens is a lot of banks is after 2-3 months, they normally get very aggressive, and they'll appoint receivers. They'll send you a letter through and literally change the locks and start collecting the rent directly from the tenants. But you do get other banks which are a bit different, that might do something different, which is that they may allow you to accrue arrears for about 6 months plus, and they may be willing to negotiate before they appoint receivers, but that's very rare. So the more aggressive banks tend to be CHL, it's a Mortgage Express, UKAR, Birmingham Mid-Shares is sort of 50-50. They're not as bad, but the others tend to be quite aggressive. So they tend to appoint receivers, which tend to be in the form of an estate agency that's got a piece of paper to say that they're receivers. But reality is all they're doing, they're just an estate agent with a piece of paper. So question is, what can Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, help with his team to deal with that problem? So at the moment, I'm dealing with about over 150 million pounds worth of assets at the moment, with varying issues like that. So we're dealing with the receivers, dealing with the bank. So we have about 25 different strategies to actually help people with that problem. So just the 3 simple ones are that we would check the paperwork that the banks adopted or used to be able to actually take the properties from you in terms of changing the locks. But if they've applied the wrong type of paperwork, so that's one type of angle that we take. The second angle that we take is that we offer bridging finance. So even though we are in receivership, we're able to negotiate with the bank and refinance the properties out to you, providing there's enough equity in the properties. So what does that mean? So if you've got, say, let's say £2 million portfolio, and the debt is only 500,000, which is about 25%, then getting a bridge at 25% is pretty easy. But if the debt was something like 1.5 million, which is 75%, then to try and get a replacement bridger who can add up the interest and actually deal with it in that way, it's not going to be easy because the numbers won't stack. So we'll need to sort of understand your situation. But if you've got extra security, you may have a couple of houses which got no debt on them. So we could bring them into the pot and reduce the debt to value gearing and still get you funding. So that second solution is bridging. Well, obviously, the cheapest solution is obviously term lending. But with the receiver issues, normally term lending can take a couple of months, especially in this market with the lockdown and access to surveyors, access to lenders. It was all very slow and tedious. So it's not easy to actually get those things done. So one of the advantages we've got when it comes to bridging finance or term lending is that we have a lot of access to lenders that will lend the money without actually doing a full survey. The lender himself might be a private individual. They'll probably be happy to go down and visit the premises and just basically give us a desktop valuation, so you don't have to pay for the valuation either, and they'll lend you without having to pay lots of upfront fees. So literally, we're doing this for a client this morning, for which he's got hardly any equity left, but he needs money. But he's got a couple of properties which are unencumbered, so we're just using those to borrow money against. But I'm doing it on a desktop and convince the lender to actually give us the money with minimal paperwork, so they're not doing a hard level of DD against this client. They're just relying upon his ability to deliver. So we can orchestrate all those sort of things for the client. So exciting times. So first bit is litigate with the bank and stop the receivers that way. Second thing is bridging finance. Third thing, I think, parallel, you've got to do this anyway, it's called term lending, which is to just get a proper buy-to-let mortgage or a commercial finance from the bank. But in this market, it's quite difficult to get term lending quickly, so that may be a problem. So now, is there a fourth solution? Do you think Lakhi Singh, the fixer, would have another solution? Yes, we do. Hanji, we do. So the fourth solution is that we also have access to a massive pool of buyers who want to buy assets as well. And if they're interested in that area or that type of asset because it fits their profile, we can offer the seller, in this case, the person in trouble, because they may not be able to get the finance because and they haven't got extra collateral. They may have to sell at quite slightly lower price, but we would offer them a 0% commission agreement, so they don't have to pay us a percentage. They just give us a 0%, and what we do is we charge the buyer 2%, and we would make our fees that way around. So that's the way the market's going to go in this country over the next year or so. So we're basically quite unique in terms of rolling out that process across all our online presence. So that's very exciting, but it also solves a problem, because anybody that's got financial issues, they can't make up their payments, and they're going to need every penny they can get. They don't have to then pay out this extra money, and if the deal is hot the buyer will get a good deal, the seller will get the property off his books or her books. So there we have it. I think 4 different ways that Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, can be taking the LPA receivers to town. Now, what else do you need to know about repossession and possession? I'm just going to cover the basics today because there's quite a lot to discuss around it. So, number 1, what is the difference between a house that you live in getting repossessed and the difference between a house that's actually a commercial asset or a buy-to-let? So a lot of people may not be aware of this, especially if you're not involved in property so much, but I think it's useful for you to know. So if you're living in a house that's regulated by the government, by the FCA, and it's not classified as a commercial asset, and a lot of the contracts that take place between the seller and the buyer, the person who's living in the property now, is conducted through solicitors, and when the bank lends the money, they classify it as a regulated house or a regulated contract, and that contract stipulates that the very different contractual information, which means that the bank can't easily repossess the property if you fall into arrears. I mean, in simple terms, it's a lot more complicated than that, obviously. So if you're living in a house and you're in arrears, the LPA Receiver Act 1925 does not apply. That's right. The LPA Receiver 1925 does not apply because you're living in the house. It's considered to be regulated. So a lot of people don't realize the difference. And if you get it confused, you could end up in a tangle. But it's very simple. If you're living in a house that's a residential mortgage, it's usually cheaper mortgage anyway, then you're likely to have to go to court to fight the bank to be able to keep your property if you fall into arrears. Whereas the same situation occurred, you had tenants in a property which is a commercial, which is a buy-to-let or a office block or industrial estate, whatever it is, then the banks actually have got rights to appoint receivers, and they have the power of sale and also the power to collect rent. So that is the major difference between the two. So going back, I've got quite a few shout outs going on now. So John Smith is saying hello. I've got 9 different platforms here. So you've got the YouTube platform as well. I'm just going to go to the YouTube platform now to really, because I haven't really seen us go live on YouTube. I just think I'm going to do a quick live test with you guys. Ooh. Right there. Who's that guy? That looks a bit like me. I think I'm going to do a quick live test with you guys. Whoa. Wow, did you hear that? Bit of feedback. So we're live on YouTube as well. So if you've got any questions on there, who's actually watching YouTube? It'll be good to know, really. If you put some comments in the YouTube section, it'll be good to know, really, how many people are actually looking at us on YouTube. We had some problems with YouTube for the last 3-4 days. So we're back online now. So if anybody wasn't able to get on YouTube, we are back now. So it'll be good to know really who's on there. So do put some comments up so we know who's watching. And if you've got any questions, do ask us, because we're here to change lives. We're here to provide knowledge. I'm here to share my contacts. So D, I'm gonna somehow do all I can in my powers to actually get you what you want. So D is looking again for a piece of land near Newcastle, within an hour and a half to 2 hours tops from Newcastle. I think she's just near Gateshead somewhere, where she can put 2 40-foot containers and help people with chronic pain, and also people from, giving them stress relief. So I've got Naveed Razak. Good morning. Still looking well. I said, good morning, sir. Looking well. Have a great day, Naveed. Balm. Well, Naveed, thank you. I think he's actually writing from YouTube. Okay, fantastic. So I don't really get many comments from YouTube, so this is fantastic. I'm loving it. So Naveed, tell us a little bit more about what you do. Are you a property investor, a business person? That'll be interesting to know. So I've got another Facebook user. I think it's John Smith saying good morning now. And Barhan's actually sent me a WhatsApp question here asking, okay, if one of my clients has gone into arrears on their house, how quickly do the banks repossess? So the answer to that question is quite simple. Normally you can ring up the bank and you've just got one missed payment or something like that. They're normally quite flexible, so you can talk to them, and if you give them a good reason, like I've lost my job, or I'm in between jobs, or there's a problem with the bank account because you were short for one day because the payment's meant to go through for your wages, but it didn't go through, so it got delayed by a day. All these sort of things, they can be explained, and they may want some verification as well. So typically speaking, Barhan, it's not really a massive issue if it's just one missed payment. But if you consistently had missed payments and you built up arrears over a couple of months, and you've got that means that